I'm Jim Mullen, founder and former CEO of Mullen Communications and the owner of Penguin Hall. Let me tell you a little bit about Penguin Hall. Penguin Hall was built in 1929 by a woman named Ruby Boyer Miller, who built herself a magnificent home in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, and then curiously, a second 20,000 square foot summer home in Wenham, Massachusetts. When she died in 1961, the building was purchased by the Archdiocese of Boston as a novitiate for the Sisters of Notre Dame and ultimately as a retirement home for the Sisters of Notre Dame. In 1975, the Archdiocese sold it to Commercial Union Insurance. I purchased it in 1987 as a home for Mullen Communications, and I have to say that it's had 3 distinguished uses over its career, but the one that's coming up, Wise Living at Penguin Hall, I guarantee is going to be the ultimate, finest use that Penguin Hall has ever had in its distinguished career. We sold Mullen Advertising in 1999 and I became vice chairman of the parent company. My colleagues decided to lease Penguin Hall from me for 10 years, and they did. Around 2007, they came to me and they said, we're thinking of moving the agency to Boston, which wasn't a great concern to me because, as you'll remember, that was a very hot real estate market, and there were plenty of things that I thought I could do with the building. About the first people that I met were from Deaconess Hospital, Deaconess Abundant Life. And they wanted to create a continuing care retirement community, a CCRC. And I thought that was a splendid use of this property. We began working together in 2007. All through 2007, we worked with the town of Wenham and to establish the architecture of the building and the logistics of the building and all of the requirements that the town had. And we worked together through all of 2008 until about September or October, where you may remember we had this little bump in the economy called the real estate housing crash. I decided not to waste those years. I decided to do a major research project in order to see if the Essex County community had the appetite and the interest to embrace the kind of retirement community that I envisioned. And so we hired a company called Kivov, who worked with a man named Joe Howell, and Joe Howell was the dean of the consultants for the retirement industry. And they came in December of 2010 and did a study which turned out to be very fruitful. I mentioned 2010 because right now there's quite a bit of glow on the housing market and we really see a rebound. But in 2010 it was midnight. There was no interest in anything. And yet they said 2 extraordinary things. First, Joe Howell said that in his entire career he had never seen a facility that had more appeal with ambience and attractiveness than Penguin Hall. And there was a reason. There were 3 reasons, actually. The first is that we have 50 acres of parkland here, beautiful parkland. The second is that Penguin Hall is the last of the great North Shore estates. And the third is that we're on the spine of Essex County. Route 128 is right around the corner, and with that you can get to any community in southern Essex County within 10 minutes. So everybody who comes here can remain part of their own communities. The other thing they said actually astonished me. They said the timing was pretty good. I thought, how can it possibly be good? No one was buying anything at that time. But of course, they were demographers. And what they did is they looked ahead and they could see the tsunami of elders that were appearing on the horizon. What I also began to see, though, disturbed me. I could see that the continuing care retirement community environment was changing and changing very rapidly, and changing because of Medicare and the way Medicare is being applied today. If you go to Medicare.gov, one of the things it says is, and I quote, home health care is usually less expensive, more convenient, and just as effective as care you get in a hospital or a skilled nursing facility. Now, that's way above assisted living. That's as good as it gets. And also on Medicare.gov, you'll find quoted all kinds of other studies from all kinds of other institutions that say essentially that people who live in their own homes are happier and healthier and live longer and spend less. And in fact, this was echoed by the Wall Street Journal in April of 2012, who said that people who are part of a society with supportive relationships, satisfying lives, fulfillment, and good health care enjoy greatly improved lives, measured by 50% less likely to visit an emergency ward, 50% less likely to be admitted to a hospital, 20% less likely to be spending their fortunes on prescription drugs, and 40% less likely to be spending it on health care. Well, the architects, EGA, who served the Deaconess Abundant Life, stayed as friends of mine, and in the summer of 2011, they called me up and they suggested that I meet with a man named Chris Wise, who had been building these communities down on the Cape. I had very little interest in seeing him because I thought the CCRC model was dead. And it turns out that Chris had very little interest in seeing me because he knew that we were developing a CCRC. So it was a standoff for half the summer until Chris, a very nice person, decided to come up here. And he started talking to me about what he'd been doing for his 22 years. And what I had learned in 2.5 years, he had been actually doing for 22.5 years. He had been building successful senior independent living communities that were functionally integrated with home health care. What he had learned is that wise living isn't a place where people go to God's waiting room. It isn't a place where people go to cut out Valentines and fall asleep over their bingo boards. It's where active, healthy, involved adults go to live. Also, what wise living is about are 3 words: home, health, and care. The reality is that most of us won't need much health care until the very last year of our lives, and then we're probably going to need a lot of it. But when we do need health care, we need it to be delivered in a way that promotes good health and returns us to the healthy. And that happens in a community where people are mutually supportive and where there is institutionalized the ability to access home health care. One of the things that we hear all the time is the story of the unanswered phone call. A woman, let's say, calls her mother and doesn't get an answer. So she calls again in an hour and doesn't get an answer. She calls again in the 3rd hour, doesn't get an answer. So she has the dilemma. Does she pack the kids in the car and drive an hour and a half to make sure her mother's okay? Or does she have to leave work to make sure her mother's okay? And at the same time, here's the mother. And she's saying, I've been my own person for 70 years now. Every time I take a nap, do I have to call my daughter? Every time I want to go out shopping, do I have to call my children? I want to live independently. Where you have resident assistants on staff, that problem goes away. The daughter calls the resident assistant and says, I've just called my mother. Have you seen her? Oh, yes, she's actually out shopping today with her friends. Or, I haven't seen your mother yet. Let me go up and knock on her door and make sure she's okay. Problem solved. What we want to do with Penguin Hall is return it to the time of great estate living, where people live in beautiful homes with beautiful amenities. I mean, Ruby Boyer Miller wasn't out shoveling or mowing. She was doing the things that she wanted to do, and that's what our residents will do. It's the opportunity to live among old friends and new, and to pursue all the things that you always wanted to do all your life. And if what you want to do is travel, great! You can turn the key, walk out the door, and come back, and your home will be just as beautiful and just as inviting as it was the moment you left. What people find most astonishing is that if you make a lateral transfer, if you move from a home of, say, $500,000 to a condominium at Penguin Hall of $500,000, your expenses will go down. Absolutely, categorically, they will go down. And by the way, when we talk about maintenance at Penguin Hall, we project that the monthly maintenance fee in 2015 will be about $1,600 a month, and that covers everything. Most condominiums are what they call studs out maintenance, where they maintain the roof and the outside of the building, the painting and the walkways and the mowing and all that stuff. We maintain studs in and studs out. So not only the outside of your home, but the inside as well, with 2 exceptions: flooring and wall covering. There are no other expenses. Not for your amenities, not for your home, for nothing. Even Ruby Boyer Miller didn't live as well as the residents of Penguin Hall are going to be living because she didn't have the kind of amenities that we're going to have. Every community centers around a great restaurant, and ours will be one of the finest on the North Shore. We have made an agreement with the men and women who own the top Nantucket restaurant to be the executive chefs of Penguin Hall's restaurant. One of the things that surprises people, of course, is that it will also be inexpensive, because why does a restaurant owned by the residents want to make money and pay taxes? And so everything is done at cost. So here we are, here's the site plan. Here's a picture of Penguin Hall today, and here is a rendering of how Penguin Hall will look tomorrow. The outside is going to be stucco and very warm. And as you can see, every unit has a sunroom with lots of fenestration for lots of fresh air and beautiful views. Before I show you Penguin Hall's new common areas, let me talk a little bit about the old ones. Penguin Hall's original rooms are carved panel with silver sconces and are absolutely magnificent. But they're going to be used for all kinds of activities that weren't imagined in the 1930s. There'll be movie nights where they reprise the Humphrey Bogart Library. There'll be political meetings. There'll be cutthroat card tournaments. There'll be all kinds of events that we can't even dream of, because this is a vital, active community, and there'll be non-stop activities in these rooms. There could even be weddings here, because if one member of a community, of our community, wants to bring his or her guests, they can do that. It's their home. Now let's talk about the new amenities area. The new Penguin Hall common areas will accommodate just about anything that you want to do. There'll be a wellness center that will accommodate any kind of activity you want. If you like Pilates, be our guest. If you want yoga, there'll be yoga. If you want to work with weights, there'll be weights. There will be a pool, a real lap pool, where you can get strong exercise by doing real, honest, hard work laps. But right beside it, there'll be a place where you can walk in the water and move against the resistance of water to get your exercise in a less strenuous way. Our dining room will be a center of activity for people when they choose to have it. But it will be configured in a way that won't rely on having a lot of guests every night. There may be nights with only a handful of guests, but it will be organized so that it will feel intimate and cozy, but can be illuminated and expanded so that it will accommodate a significant number of people. It will be a community area where people will get together with their friends, invitees, and also meet new friends. Additionally, we are going to have flower and vegetable gardens with a greenhouse for anyone who chooses to have them. The chef certainly does. He plans to raise a lot of his own vegetables. There will, of course, be a lounge, and there will be a place where people can just simply hang out and talk. And in the dining area, there'll be some private dining rooms where you can not only have lunch, but then a meeting with your community fellows afterwards. Gordon College has really gotten behind this project and is offering our residents the opportunity to audit any class for a nominal fee. They also have a wonderful balance and mobility center that's 1.2 short miles away from Penguin Hall, and those memberships are open to all of our residents. We want Penguin Hall to have all of the things that every community has, but not be isolated from the community. So while we concentrate a lot of activities here, you also can take your elevator down, get in your car, and go out to the clubs, the restaurants, all of the things that you've been doing for all of your life in southern Essex County. Essex County is a wonderful place. It's filled with museums and restaurants and services, and you can access all of them. You also can access all of the amenities of Penguin Hall, because this is the type of community where you can enjoy life to absolutely the fullest. It's all about living. Penguin Hall is going to be a wonderful place to live, and we invite you to experience it.